Next, transactions. So transactions means it is a sequence of one or more SQL statements that are executed as a single unit. Okay. So MySQL, so this transaction behavior in PostgreSQL, that is somewhat different in SQL Server or MySQL. Okay. So MySQL or SQL Server, it is auto commit by default. That means partial success possible. PostgreSQL transactions safe all or nothing by default. Okay. So that means PostgreSQL by default, some properties of transaction will be satisfied. That means compared to the MySQL and SQL Server, in I will explain that scenario next later. Okay. In some context, this MySQL and SQL Server will not allow to execute that statements. Okay. And PostgreSQL, sorry, I will explain that context here. Okay. See, if I take one table which is having some column name, that is varchar of 5 data type. Okay. So if you are trying to insert one record into that table, that column data type should be less than or equal to 5 only. Okay. So if you write multiple insert query for the table, one insert query is having data type size that is less than or equal to 5, and another statement, another insert query is having that is greater than 5. Okay. So SQL Server MySQL will allow to execute that statements. Okay. That means first statement is executed and then second statement will not be executed successfully due to that insufficient data type. Okay. But coming to the PostgreSQL, it will not allow to execute that two statements. Okay. So next. So I will tell with example. Okay. I will show that in SQL Server and MySQL. Okay. And what are the properties of the transaction means atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Atomicity means all statements inside a transaction that should be succeeded or none. That means if all queries are succeeded, either all queries are succeeded or all queries are fails. Okay. That means if the second query is failed, then first query is also gets failed. That means rollback will come. Consistency means database moves from one value state to another state. That means if you execute multiple statements in a transaction, after completion of that transaction, database should be inconsistent. That means after executing the transaction, all the constraints should be satisfied. Okay. So that is consistency. Okay. After executing the transaction, the statements involved in the transaction, that statement should be satisfied with the constraints which are declared on the particular tables. Isolations. Isolation means transactions run independently of each other. Okay. So I mean, transaction means multiple statements will be there. Okay. Between that, once after execution of one statement, that results will not be visible to others. Okay, so that is transaction runs independently of each other. So we cannot see that individual results. Okay, so durability. Once committed, changes are permanent. That means once transaction is committed, I mean all commands in a transactions are executed, the changes are permanent even if the system crashes. Okay, so these are the properties of a transaction. Okay, so that means if you put your SQL statements or commands in a transaction, so the transaction will take care of all these functionalities. Okay, so here begin, that is nothing but start transaction, and commit, save all changes made in the transaction permanently, and roll back, undo all changes made in the transaction. Okay, roll back means just get revert back. Okay, so for this I am taking SQL Server, how this transaction behaves in SQL Server, we will see that. So first of all, I will take one table, that is employee transaction, and column name employee name varchar of 5. Okay, insert into varchar of insert into employee transaction ename values just I'm creating this table, and write one stored procedure, create procedure, and check transaction. So no need to have parameters, begin, end, okay. So begin, try, begin, end, shit, end, try. Okay, so begin transaction, end transaction, and commit. Begin transaction, end commit transaction, and here begin catch, end catch. So here I am writing this insert query. So okay, so in this table, first, so data type is varchar of 5. So here I am inserting 5 letters, 6 letters. I'm inserting 5 letters first, and then 6 letters next. Okay, so in this catch block, if transaction count greater than 0, roll back transaction, select error message as result. Okay, see, execute it, and here take that procedure name and write the result query for employee transaction table. Okay, so see here string or binary data would be truncated. Okay, you can check. I will take two tables. EMP transaction. One, two. Okay, and here 1, 2. Okay, and I'm going to alter this. Execute 1, 2. So same thing in MySQL. So same queries, use D3, and here uh, okay. Clear, new, handler for SQL exception, SQL warning, and begin, end, set work equal to 1. Or I think not found. Not found. Begin. Exit handler for SQL exception warning. Here get diagnostics condition 1 at the rate p2 equal to message underscore text. So here select 500 as STS and P2 as message. Start transaction, commit, insert into what is the table? Values. I can get that insert queries from here. Too long for call. So in SQL Server in MySQL, I'm getting error. Okay. So here create or replace procedure transaction language pgSQL as begin, end. So to take these columns and the tables are created. Okay. And take this insert queries. Here I'm writing exception block when others, then roll back is notice error name percentage SQL ERRM. Procedure is created. Here commit see this. See, I have written the code, same code in SQL Server and MySQL, PostgreSQL. Okay. So without exception, without transactions, please observe the output. Okay. So this is SQL Server. Okay. And truncate table. Okay. So here we are not having any data. I just comment this code, transaction related code. Okay. Just I am executing this procedure, exec procedure name. Okay. See the output A, B, C, D, E, 5 letters. But second table, we are not having any data. Okay. Without using transactions. Okay. So, and come to this PostgreSQL and just creating this procedure and call this procedure. I am not using any transactions. Okay, see this. I didn't use commit statement, rollback statement. Okay, just call that store procedure and it is displaying that value too long. Okay, See, data is not available in employee transaction 1 table and employee transaction 2 table. And go to this MySQL. Just I am commenting this transaction related code. Start transaction, commit transaction. Okay. And apply. So here I am calling that procedure and checking these tables. Transaction 1 table, data is available. Transaction 2 table, data is not available. Okay, same kind of queries I am taking for SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL. Okay, without transactions. So here one insert query. This query is not having any problem. Data employee name data type is varchar of 5. So I am giving just A, B, C, D, E, 5 letters. Okay. Second query, I am giving 6 letters. Okay. So in both SQL Server and MySQL, okay, in both SQL Server and MySQL, first statement is executed and record is populated into employee transaction 1 table. In coming to the second table, second query, it is not allowed to execute. Why? Because data type is size is bigger than data type size. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, E, F, G. That means 7 letters. Okay, 7 letters. But data type is varchar of 5. So here we are having table records in employee transaction table. Okay, if you put transactions, then before going to execute it, observe this. First date. Okay, I am executing this. See, data too long. Now, see, data is not inserted into first table. And same scenario in SQL Server. Okay, execute it and execute this store procedure and check these tables. See, data is not inserted. Okay, so that means, see, this overflow condition, this where it is. See, when you execute this procedure in PostgreSQL, value too long for character varying. Okay, so this kind of error will come in SQL Server or MySQL. Okay, for table 2. Okay, so in PostgreSQL, so this is, see this, PostgreSQL, all or nothing by default. If this PostgreSQL executes these 2 statements successfully, or none of the statements will be executed. Okay, a small difference. Without having the transaction in PostgreSQL, it will not allow to execute. Without transaction in SQL Server and MySQL, okay, what will happen? That particular statement is executed. Whenever error comes at the statement, that kind of error will be thrown by the SQL Server. Same thing, MySQL also. Okay, so at what point we are getting error? Up to that point, that all statements are executed successfully. Okay, but coming to the PostgreSQL, it will not happen.
సార్ హలో
Yeah,
సార్ వినిపిస్తుంది సార్
interesting.
సార్ ఇక్కడ